Hi, this is Alan, and today we're going to talk about general algebra. So I know that most of you have already learned this, but in case you haven't or you haven't learned a certain part of it, then this video is for you. So you need to use algebra if there is an equation and there's a variable. So each equation is made of polynomials, a equal sign, and another polynomial. And each polynomial is made out of terms. So what is a term and what is a polynomial? A term is anything that basically does not include a addition or subtraction sign. So for example, 5x, that doesn't have a addition or subtraction sign. That's all by itself, it's isolated. So that'd be a term. But if you say 5x plus 2, that's not isolated. So that will not be a term. That will be two terms added together, which is the two terms would be 5x and 2. So a term is basically made of a coefficient. So in the case of 5x, that will be 5. And it's made up of a variable, which in the case of 5x will be x, and an exponent, which in the case of 5x is 1. So next is the sum of two or more algebraic terms. A monomial is only one. So today we're going to talk about types of polynomials and solving for them. Polynomials, they're grouped by their exponents. So linear is basically the highest sum of all the exponents in a single term is 1. So this would be, so x is actually x to the 1, so that'll be linear. And x plus 3 plus y, the highest sum of all the highest sum of the exponents in any term is 1. So for x it will be 1, for 3 it will be 0, since 3 is actually 3 times a variable to the 0, and y, which is to the first. Next is quadratic, which is the sum of all the exponents in a term is 2. So this is x to the second power, so it's quadratic. This is also quadratic because the highest is 2. So this is 2, this is 2, this is 1, and this is 0. So there's cubic, which is to a third power, and quartic, which is to a fourth power. And it basically goes on forever, but most of them aren't important. The most important are linear and quadratic for polynomials. Basically, we're going to mainly talk about linear and quadratic because they are the most stable, they can be easily solved, and they aren't as confusing. Equations are also based on how many variables they have. For every variable, there must be at least one equation. So we're going to talk before. So this slide is going to be on one variable polynomials. So for linear, it's basically basic algebra. So like what you learned in 4th or 5th grade. So things like 3x plus 5 is equal to 8. Simple things like that. Quadratic is more complicated, but there is a formula called the quadratic formula that will solve pretty much any quadratic equation guaranteed. So there are a few other ways, but they will be covered later. For now, the quadratic equation is pretty much all you need. So quadratic formula basically says for any variable, for any polynomial in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0, x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. We won't cover the proof right now because it's not super important to solving it, but we will cover it later. So for the in order to use the quadratic equation, you have to arrange the coefficients, the terms correctly. They must be in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. So for example, 5x squared plus 3 equals 16x. We can't use the quadratic formula right now because it's not in this format. So we put it in this format by subtracting 16x from both sides. So 16x minus 16x is 0, and 5x squared plus 3 minus 16x is equal to this. So now we can use the quadratic formula, and we solve, and x is equal to 3 or 1 over 5. There are two answers because because of the plus minus sign. So one of the answer is negative b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And the other answer is negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So find the sum of all possible values of x. So 2x plus 2 over x is equal to 4. Right now, this isn't in the form of a quadratic because the highest is 1. Highest exponent is 1. So, but it's not linear either because this the exponent of this is negative 1. So what we do is multiply this problem by entire equation by x, and we get 2x squared plus 2 is equal to 4x. So now this is a quadratic. So we arrange it in the correct format. We simplify it, or even though this is optional, you don't have to. And we put in the quadratic formula, and we solve. There's only one answer because this part is 0. This part is also called the discriminant, and we will talk about it more in future videos. So if this is 0, we if the discriminant is 0, we can easily see that there will be only one solution for x. So other problem, negative 6 times b squared minus 4ab plus a squared equals 0. Well, the thing about this problem, there's two variables, so how do we do that? If we look at the problem more closely, we see that we don't actually have to find a or b. We have to find a divided by b, which is a ratio. For certain problems, if you have to find a ratio, you don't need that many equations. You only need one. So since we have to find a ratio, the equation must be manipulated to find the ratio. So if we divide everything by b squared, we get this, which is a quadratic because if we set the a variable to be a over b, we get a squared. This will be x squared. This will be x, and this will be x to the 0. So we substitute x for a over b. This helps us think about it more clearly. Since we don't have to do with a over b, we only have to deal with one thing. So we solve for x, and x is equal to 3 and negative 2. And since x is equal to a over b, then a over b is equal to 3 and negative 2. So here's our answer. So solving for systems of linear equations, this basically means that there's more than one variable. So every variable, you need at least one equation. So if you have 2 equations, you need 2 variables, have 3 equations, and you have 3 variables. They're usually represented by 2 or more equations and a bracket. So there are 2 major ways to solve for systems of linear equations. It's substitution and elimination. Substitution, basically, you isolate one of their variables, so like you turn it into something like 5x plus 2 is equal to y. And then you put that isolated variable into the second equation. Well, we're going to talk about this later in another slide, but for now, just think about it like this. The other way is to elimination. Basically, you have to add the 2 equations, and you add the 2 equations, and by doing so, you eliminate one of the variables. So this is an example. If you add these 2 equations, by minus by is equal to 0. So now you only have a plus t times x is equal to c plus c. Y is gone because by minus by is 0. So if you really want to use this, if the equations are already in this format. So I personally prefer substitution for more complex problems and elimination for simpler problems. It really doesn't matter what you use as long as you can do it quickly and you're comfortable with it. So now, solve for x using substitution. So we see that y is nearly already isolated. So we want to substitute y into this equation. And we do this first by isolating y. So we divide everything by 2. So we get y is equal to 2x plus 4 over 2, which is equal to x plus 2. Now we substitute this value into this because these two are equal. These two y's are equal because because they're in the same system. So we get 5x minus x plus 2 is equal to 0. And then so we get this, simplify, and we solve for x. X is equal to 3. Now we put x back into either equation and we solve. So elimination, this is the general steps for elimination. So you have these two variables, ax plus by is equal to c, and dx plus ey is equal to f. What you do is basically multiply then this equation by the variable right here, which is e, and you multiply the bottom equation by the negative of this. Essentially, your goal is to make these equal, so this is the easiest way. But make sure that the signs are different. If this is plus and this is plus, then you don't need it. These are both plus, then you would get 2BEEY, which would defeat the purpose. So after you figure out how to eliminate one of the variables, the elimination is actually pretty easy. So you have these two equations. So we can choose to eliminate either variable, but for the sake of this presentation, we will choose y. So we must multiply both equations by a number. One equation by a number and the other equation by another number, so that the y part disappears. So to do this, we multiply this by -4 and multiply this by 3. So we get this is negative 12y and this is positive 12y. So when we add them together, they disappear. So we add them together, and 11x equals 22, so x is equal to 2. And then we plug this back, 2 plus 3y is equal to 5, y is equal to 3. And 3y is equal to 3, and y is equal to 1. So basically that's how you do elimination. If you need more practice, I suggest looking up other websites or asking your teacher for help. But, so, yeah. So that's, hope you guys liked it. Please comment, please share. And so this is only part 1. Next time we will go into things in more detail. And most importantly, how this will appear on competitions. So thank you for watching. See you guys.